Tonight's headlines will flash before your eyes. Ian Smith storms out, takes country with him. Navy sends Italians to the deep end in Taranto. And Lords of the Manor no more, Hereditary Club closes. And later, in our comedy corner, laughter greases skid on Enid Blyton toilet block. Those are the headlines. Hold tight and fart for Queen and Country.
The Newsbang, the truth served up with a side of whimsy and a dash of wryness. And in 1965,
chaos erupted in Salisbury today as a small group of particularly entitled individuals declared they were taking their ball and going home. The announcement, made from what witnesses describe as the world's most pompous garden party, sparked immediate international condemnation and a flurry of strongly worded letters.
Local resident Timothy Twiddlebottom reported seeing Prime Minister Ian Smith practicing his declaration speech in front of a mirror while wearing what appeared to be a homemade crown fashioned from tea coasters. He kept saying, "I declare independence" in different voices until he found one he liked, Twiddlebottom explained.
The British government responded by implementing what they're calling Operation No More Cricket for You, a series of sanctions designed to make everyone involved feel thoroughly disappointed in themselves.
Meanwhile, the United Nations has issued its sternest possible frown, accompanied by a resolution declaring the whole affair simply not cricket and rather poor form, old chap.
a 1940.
Breaking news from 1940 as British pilots revolutionise warfare by attacking Italian battleships with what witnesses describe as basically farm equipment with wings. The Royal Navy, apparently tired of conventional warfare, sent a squadron of cloth-covered biplanes, held together with string and optimism, to bomb the Italian fleet.
The attack, which experts are calling absolutely mental, saw British pilots dropping torpedoes from aircraft that were slower than most pedestrians. Lieutenant Percy Madman Winterbottom reportedly shouted, "Tally-ho, you pasta-loving git!" before scoring a direct hit with what he later admitted was mostly luck and a bit of gin.
Italian Admiral Giuseppe Marinara was quoted as saying, "Mamma mia, they're coming at us with museum pieces." Local fisherman Luigi Risotto claimed the British planes were so slow he managed to make an entire lasagna while watching them approach.
The success of this operation has led military strategists to consider other unconventional tactics, including catapulting angry badgers at enemy installations and training seagulls to perform precision bombing runs with stolen chips.
This estate in the stool. 1999.
Scenes of chaos erupted in Westminster today as 759 hereditary peers were forcibly ejected from the House of Lords, many still clutching their ceremonial robes and gin and tonics. The Earl of Tweedledum was found hiding in a broom cupboard, muttering about his divine right to fall asleep during debates.
Witnesses report seeing Lord Ponsonby Smythe attempting to claim squatters' rights by chaining himself to his favourite red leather bench, while the Duke of Marlborough was discovered trying to stuff his entire ancestral estate into his briefcase.
"It's an outrage!" spluttered Baron Bottomley of Bottom, whose family has been sleeping through parliamentary sessions since 1422. "How else am I supposed to maintain my collection of antique snuff boxes and racing horses?"
Tony Blair's government defended the act, stating that hereditary peerage makes about as much sense as choosing MPs based on their ability to juggle badgers. The 92 peers who were allowed to stay were selected through what observers described as a sort of posh musical chairs, but with more port wine.
Newsbang. Cracking the safe of suppression, cracking the truth open like a soft-boiled egg.
And now, our weather expert Shakanaka Giles, who's been staring at clouds all day and claims to know what they're up to.
Right then, tomorrow the south will be a right mess, with a downpour so heavy it'll make Noah's flood look like a light sprinkle. Might want to keep the wellies handy, unless you fancy a spot of synchronized swimming on your commute. Over in the Midlands, it'll be a brisk one, with a chill that'll have you reaching for your thickest woolly socks like a yeti trying to keep its tootsies toasty. And don't forget, Remembrance Day is tomorrow, so you'll want to make sure that Poppy is firmly pinned. As for Scotland, well, the wind will be howling like a banshee. Sounds like the perfect weather for a wee dram and a spot of Highland dancing, if you ask me. Just watch out for any stray haggis taking flight. In summary then, soggy south, chilly Midlands and a blustery Scotland. Wrap up warm, folks, and may the weather gods be kind. And that's all the weather.
(1805).
Breaking news from 1805, where French forces have suffered what can only be described as an embarrassing tactical blunder in the Wachau Valley. Marshal Mortier's 8th Corps found themselves caught between a rock and a hard place, or more specifically, between the Danube and some rather inconveniently placed mountains. The Austro-Russian forces, led by the cunning Kutuzov, executed what military experts are calling a bit of a clever move, really. For more on this developing historical crisis, we cross live via our time-travelling correspondence unit to Brian Bastable.
This is Brian Bastable reporting from the blood-soaked banks of the Danube where Marshal Mortier's men are being absolutely massacred. The air is thick with what the locals call death confetti. There goes another volley. I've just watched 3 French soldiers being catapulted into the river by an Austrian howitzer. They were still arguing about their lunch rations as they flew through the air. The sound you can hear now is my left leg being crushed by a runaway artillery piece. Never mind that. The Russians have just appeared on the heights above, and oh my word, they're absolutely everywhere. Like angry wasps at a jam factory. The French are trapped between the river and the mountains, and Kutuzov's men are picking them off like ducks in a carnival shooting gallery. I've just seen General Gazan attempting to rally his men while simultaneously trying to keep his internal organs from spilling out of a rather nasty bayonet wound. Remarkably good posture considering the circumstances. The valley is absolutely littered with dismembered body parts. I'm currently using a severed arm as a makeshift microphone stand. The French division is being absolutely pulverized. There goes another one straight into the Danube. That's the 15th splash I've counted in the last minute alone. Marshal Mortier is now retreating faster than a scalded cat, leaving behind enough military equipment to start a small army surplus shop. This is Brian Bastable, Newsbang, ducking under a barrage of grape shot in the Wachau Valley.
1880.
Australian outlaw Ned Kelly met his fate at the Hangman's Noose today in 1880 in what witnesses describe as a rather final solution to Melbourne's ongoing criminal concerns. 4,000 citizens gathered outside Melbourne jail to witness what some are calling justice, and others a travesty. Kelly's reported final words, "Such is life," have already been trademarked by several T-shirt companies. For more on this historical execution and its implications for modern crime prevention, we go to Ken Schitt, who's been investigating similar cases of charismatic criminals meeting sticky ends.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm standing here at Melbourne Jail, where they just strung up the meanest, toughest son of a gun this side of Satan's armpit, Ned Kelly. The bastard went down swinging, and I mean that metaphorically because his hands were tied behind his back. 4,000 people showed up outside this hellhole to watch justice get served like a plate of cold sick. Some were baying for blood, others were crying their eyes out for their folk hero. It was a regular circus of human misery, I tell you. Kelly, this iron-clad pain in the establishment's backside, took his medicine like a champion. "Such is life," he says. cool as a cucumber in January. Meanwhile, Judge Barry's sitting pretty, probably polishing his gavel and thinking about how he'd already locked up Kelly's mum years before. Talk about holding a grudge. The authorities wouldn't budge on clemency, not even when thousands of ordinary citizens begged them to spare the poor bastard. But that's justice for you, blind as a bat and twice as deaf. Yesterday, Kelly posed for one last photo with his mother, like a lamb saying goodbye to its shepherd before the slaughter. It was enough to make this hardened reporter's heart crack like an egg in a frying pan. This is Ken Shit, reporting from 1880, where they just killed a legend and made him immortal. Back to you in the studio, you magnificent bastards.
And in 1965,
Rhodesia has just declared itself independent from Britain in what can only be described as the most awkward colonial breakup since my Aunt Mildred left Uncle Percy for that man who sells decorative door knockers. Prime Minister Ian Smith, sporting what witnesses describe as a determined moustache, has effectively told Her Majesty's government to, and I quote, "jolly well buzz off." The UN Security Council is reportedly not amused. And, for more on this developing situation, which has been developing for exactly 58 years, here's our political correspondent, Marzipan Melee.
Yes, Martin. I'm here in Salisbury with noted colonial historian Professor Daphne Drumstick Fortesque, and we're witnessing what can only be described as a rather awkward moment in British-Rhodesian relations.
Indeed, Mr. Pesto. Prime Minister Smith has just declared...
Just a moment, Professor. Martin, the mood here is tense, but optimistic. Several people are waving flags, though I'm not entirely sure which ones.
Pesto, this is a constitutional crisis. What exactly did Ian Smith say?
Well, he said quite a lot, Martin. Words, mainly. Quite a few of them, in order.
Could you be more specific?
He definitely mentioned independence. And Britain, though not necessarily in a good way.
If I might interject, what we've witnessed is a unilateral...
Sorry, Professor, there's some commotion. Someone's just thrown what appears to be a ceremonial teapot at the British High Commissioner.
Pesto, focus. Has Smith actually signed the declaration?
Well, there was definitely signing, though it might have been an autograph, or possibly a birthday card. It's quite difficult to tell from this distance.
It was the unilateral Declaration of Independence, clearly stating...
Breaking news, Martin! Someone's just unfurled a new flag, though it looks suspiciously like the old flag, with perhaps slightly different birds on it.
Pesto, this is history happening. Are you actually watching any of it?
Of course, Martin. I'm right here, in the thick of it, though slightly behind a large pot plant.
Why are you behind a pot plant?
Health and safety, Martin. Can't be too careful with all these declarations flying about.
Professor Drumstick Fortesque, please help us here.
What we're seeing is the first British colony to declare independence since the American...
Sorry, Professor, but I think someone's just declared something else. Possibly lunch.
That's enough. Marzipan Pesto, allegedly in Salisbury, 1965, though probably just hiding in the BBC canteen.
1926.
America now, where chaos on the roads has finally been brought to heel by the introduction of numbers. The American Association of State Highway Officials has declared war on named trails, replacing such romantic monikers as the Dixie Highway and the Lincoln Highway, with cold, hard digits. A revolutionary system that means drivers need only count to understand where they're going. For more on this numerical nightmare, we cross live to our American correspondent, Melody Wintergreen, who's standing by a sign marked 66.
Route 66, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, 1926. Melody Wintergreen here, at the very spot where romance met the road and promptly got run over by a truckload of numbers. It was on this day that the American Association of State Highway Officials decided that names were for sissies. They unveiled the U.S. numbered highway system, a grid of digits designed to bring order to America's chaotic roads. Say goodbye to the Lincoln Highway and the Victory Trail. Say hello to routes 66, 1, and 40. It's a system so simple, a monkey could navigate it. Or at least a monkey with a map and a really good memory. Those highway officials, bless their orderly hearts, thought they were bringing clarity to the chaos. No more squinting at confusing signs or asking for directions in towns where the locals speak a dialect of grunts and shrugs. Just follow the numbers, and you'll reach your destination. Or maybe just another gas station that sells questionable hot dogs. But there's a downside to this numerical nirvana. Something's been lost in the translation. The romance, the adventure, the thrill of the open road. It's all been replaced by the cold, hard logic of numbers. It's like a love letter written in binary code. As the sun sets on this historic intersection, one thing's for sure. America's roads will never be the same. Whether this numbered highway system is a blessing or a curse, only time and a few million road trips will tell. Melody Wintergreen, Newsbang, from Route 66, the most famous number in American history. So far...
Our Newsbang, kicking the belly of hypocrisy with the pointed toe of satire.
And finally, it's time for a last swift kick at tomorrow's papers. The Times. Molotov talks to the Germans, trying to be friends. There's a map there of Russia. The Telegraph lead with RAF get Tirpitz on 9th attempt, that was close. And there's an advert for Salprime bath salts. The Guardian, French capture Big G from other French. There's a 12-page pullout of Gabon, including a section on colouring in. While the Mail opt for great excitement in Holland over lost dog named Steve. And finally, the Express. Will you live to be 200? Read tomorrow's amazing medical breakthrough exclusive. That's it. The controller of radio would like to remind our listeners that weather reports for this region have been suspended due to doubts about the weatherman's accent. Newsbang back tomorrow.
Tune in next time for more artificially intelligent hilarity. Newsbang is a comedy show written and recorded by AI. All voices impersonated. Nothing here is real. Good night.